the New York Times interview with Donald Trump, and if you just want a quick summary, he decided to shit on pretty much everyone and blame everyone around him for his failures. So let's get to the first person that he decided to throw under that bus.
Sessions gets the job. Right after he gets the job, he recuses himself.
Was that a mistake?
Well, Sessions should have never recused himself. And if he was going to recuse himself, he should have told me before he took the job, and I would have picked somebody else.
He gave you no heads up at all in any sense?
Zero.
Okay.
So Jeff Sessions takes the job, gets into the job, recuses himself. I then have, which frankly, I think is very unfair to the president. How do you take a job and then recuse yourself? If he would have recused himself before the job, I would have said, thanks, Jeff, but I can't, I'm not going to take you. It's extremely unfair, and that's a mild word, to the president.
So Jeff Sessions is still his attorney general, right? So he's still working with Jeff Sessions. And so this interview is strange considering the fact that he did just openly say, well, if I would have known that he would have recused himself, I would have never hired him. I would have never given him the job. And it's just interesting to see that level of transparency, although I'm not saying transparency in a positive way, I'm saying it in a critical way.
Yeah, he speaks in a very unvarnished way when he's talking about protecting himself. He says it's very unfair to the president, but of course, recusing himself was surprisingly the fairest thing that Jeff Sessions could do to the process, to the investigative process, right? So, but of course, Donald Trump doesn't care about the investigative process, he cares about himself. And everything he says in service of that, he says in a very unvarnished way. And so, Jeff Sessions is not the first and not the last to feel this sense of being thrown under the bus, as Anna says.
And just to be clear, though, Trump cares about this investigation. He cares deeply about this investigation.
Oh, clearly. In fact, this is evidence that he feels that heat.
Right. I mean, and there's been so much evidence regarding how much he cares about this investigation. I mean, he was transparent about the reason why he fired Comey. He openly said he fired Comey because of his part in investigating possible collusion with Russia. And so it's fascinating to see him, take shots at those closest to him in this administration. JR?
Can we first think about the way this works? Way he thinks this works. He thinks Jeff Sessions is his presidential attorney. He thinks the attorney general is to represent the president and protect him from anything that could possibly come towards him, because that's where his life has been. He's got a team of attorneys to protect him from all the nefarious backhanded deals that he has always done. So he's like, why would I hire an attorney general in Jeff Sessions if he's gonna recuse himself? When you hired Jeff Sessions, the investigations weren't launched yet. You were just elected. You idiot. So why would Jeff Sessions know, hey, they're gonna launch all these investigations into all the nefarious things you've been doing. I should not take the job because I'm going to recuse myself in the future from protecting you from all investigations that haven't even happened yet. He doesn't know how it works.
But I think, look, because I totally agree that it's very likely that he doesn't know how it works, right? But even so, he is under the impression that people around him need to be loyal to him at any and all costs. Forget about fairness, forget about the democratic process, forget about democracy, forget about the American people. You need to be loyal to Donald Trump regardless of the situation. And so that's what he's really angry about.
Right, and he doesn't connect those dots that JR is talking about. And JR, I don't think he's really even bothering to figure out the logic. What he is doing is he's doing what Anna's talking about, which is making a statement. And this is not an accident. He's saying, hey, Jeff Sessions and all of you who serve in my administration, loyalty to me is the only priority of this administration. And so he quite deliberately isn't doing the math on when the investigation started and all the rest. I think he just wants to make that point.
Yes, and so there was a few more comments that he made in regard to Jeff Sessions, and it had to do with his confirmation hearings. So remember, Jeff Sessions got into a little bit of trouble because he didn't disclose the fact that he had met with the Russian ambassador on 2 different occasions. And so Trump decided to comment on that specific portion of this entire debacle. And he said Jeff Sessions gave some bad answers. He gave some answers that were simple questions and should have been simple answers, but they weren't. I I agree with you on that. Why is it that he didn't disclose that he had those 2 meetings with the Russian ambassador? Who knows? But Jeff Sessions was asked about Trump's comments while he was giving a press conference in regard to something completely different. Press conference had to do with, the black market sale of illicit products. And of course, the reporters had less interest in that and more interest in hearing Sessions' thoughts on Trump's comments. Take a look.
Given what he said, what is your reaction to those remarks, and how seriously are you considering possibly resigning?
We in this Department of Justice will continue every single day to work hard to serve the national interest, and we wholeheartedly join in the priorities of President Trump. I have the honor of serving as Attorney General. It's something that goes beyond any thought I would have ever had for myself. We love this job, we love this department, and I plan to continue to do so as long as that is appropriate.
All right, so
that's the kind of statement that so many in the White House are kind of used to making, which is to sort of ignore the specifics of whatever the president said and just make a statement about how much you love your job and how much you love serving this country. I'll remind you who Jeff Sessions is, though. He's not a good guy. He's someone who has really not acted on the part of those who are not served by the judicial system, the underclass that need the Justice Department. He is not their representative in Washington. You'll remember he backed President Trump on his advertisement for the Central Park Five. You recall that entire, and the Central Park Five, who were exonerated of that horrible incident. So Jeff Sessions is not one of the good guys, but he finds himself opposite the president at this moment in time anyway.
I know, it's really interesting. It's interesting to see people that you dislike for good reason, fighting with one another. And Jeff Sessions, a standard politician, he comes out there with his poker face, but make no mistake, I mean, hearing the commander-in-chief, the president, talk about you so negatively to a major news outlet can't be fun. Let's hear a little more from Sessions.
How do you feel like you can effectively serve from here on out if you don't have the confidence of the president?
We're serving right now. The work we're doing today is the kind of work that we intend to continue. But I really would like for you to focus now on the work of the individuals behind me that have helped put this case together.
Okay, in both of the videos that we just showed you guys, it starts with Jeff Sessions far away from the podium and then awkwardly walking toward the podium to answer the question. Why does he walk away in between questions? It's so strange. Can we just watch the beginning of the last video? I don't know, it really stood out to me for some reason. Okay, she's asking the question, what's going on? Why does Trump suck so much? In both of the videos. I don't know, it's just interesting.
Well, I mean, and maybe, they're presenting other law enforcement officers and people maybe from DOJ who are associated with the opiate thing, if that's what he was talking about originally. So maybe he's kind of trying to take his place in line, but you're right, it has an odd optic.
It really does, and he has like that smirk on his face. Anyway, so
he's got a weird look to begin with. He's kind of got a munchkin-y look, you know what I mean? So to be fair, I think a lot of situations help make it a little more awkward.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right, well, there was one other quick portion of that press conference featuring Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, and I want to show you that portion because of a comment a reporter made after the fact. So take a quick look at this video.
Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein, the president told the New York Times yesterday that the fact that you're from Baltimore concerns him, since there aren't many Republicans from that city. Is that something that's a valid concern in your view? What do you make of that criticism?
As the Attorney General said, we're working here every day to advance the priorities of the Department of Justice, the administration. And as the Attorney General said, we're happy to answer any questions about this Alpha Bay case. It's a very important case. We got a lot of folks here who assisted in that investigation, and that's all I'm going to talk about today. Thank you.
Any questions about Alpha Bay? All right, thank you.
It's not about Alpha Bay. Are you concerned you'll be seen as a zombie Attorney General?
Are you afraid to be seen as a zombie Attorney General? All right, well, Jeff Sessions was one person who was criticized by Trump during that interview, but there was also criticism directed toward James Comey, which you should expect. But the accusations that Trump made in regard to James Comey in my opinion, just give you a sense of how distrustful he is, how paranoid he is, and how even if someone comes with him or comes to him with information that could be helpful, for strategy purposes, Trump thinks that, no, these people have the worst intentions in mind. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So according to the New York Times, Mr. Trump recalled that Mr. Comey and other intelligence officials briefed him at Trump Tower on Russian meddling. Mr. Comey afterwards pulled Mr. Trump aside and told him about a dossier that had been assembled by a former British spy filled with salacious allegations against the incoming president, including supposed sexual escapades in Moscow. Now, for those of you who might have missed that story, and this has never been corroborated, it was the whole thing about how Trump hired prostitutes to urinate on a bed that Obama allegedly slept on. Those accusations, that's the dossier we're talking about. Now, Comey came to him with that story before it broke. So in this interview with the New York Times, Donald Trump said, in my opinion, he shared it, so I would think he had it out there. And the reporter says, as leverage? He's like, yeah, I think so, in retrospect. So he thinks that Comey was using that as leverage against him, when in reality, Comey was trying to help him out and be like, bro, like there's a little bit of an issue here. I just want to make sure it's, at the top of your mind so you deal with it, but he didn't see it as helpful.
Yeah, I mean, even if you kind of accept it as squishy in terms of the truth, it's Comey saying, hey, this is out there, and he's looking for a firm denial from Trump or something along those lines. It was clear that Comey was tentative, to say the least, about his relationship with the president, and he felt this is a very unstable situation, and it's frankly one that a lot of people view as unstable. But it's hard to see that he had any knives out for Trump early on, and yet, obviously, after the fact, it's all it becomes quite obvious that Trump essentially dumped him purely for the Russia investigation. And just on the Russia investigation, and Anna's so right, he feels the heat of this Russia investigation. All roads and all responses lead back to something concerning Russia. And you can also see the way the White House is falling apart right now. They are all scattering because it is unclear who's going to really bear this responsibility and be hung out to dry. The president is hanging people out to dry every day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's interesting because he expects loyalty from others, but he's not very loyal to anyone, right? He will throw people around him under the bus for the smallest thing, and that's what we've been noticing so far.
TYT membership gets you commercial-free Young Turks. Download it, stream it, podcast it, get all the network shows, and support independent media. TYTnetwork.com/join.